Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this video I will be reviewing all 4 flavors of Kiss My Keto's bread. I've done a number of different bread reviews on this channel, and I will link to a playlist at the end of this video with all of them. Recently, I got the variety pack of breads from Kiss My Keto, and in this video I will review 4 different flavors: golden wheat, dark wheat, seeded wheat, and cinnamon raisin. For each of these breads, not only will I be doing a taste test, but I will also measure my glucose using a continuous glucose monitor as well as a blood glucose monitor. Also, to be consistent with my other videos, I will consume these the same way that I did in those, which is 1 slice plain and 1 slice toasted with butter. And for each of the breads, I'll start by providing the ingredients and the nutritional information. The first bread that I'm going to try is the golden wheat. In terms of ingredients, we have water, vital wheat gluten, eggs, oat fiber, palm oil, golden flaxseed meal, kosher salt, baker's yeast, butter, xanthan gum, cultured wheat, natural flavor, and honey. So I don't know exactly what cultured wheat is. That might be a concern for some people. Vital wheat gluten, even though it's got the words wheat and gluten in it, it's a protein. So I'm not especially concerned about that. I personally have never had any sort of reaction to gluten. The serving size is 1 slice. We've got 4 grams of total fat, 5 grams of total carbohydrate, 5 grams of fiber for a net 0 grams, and 6 grams of protein. So the first thing I notice is the size. And these are not some big slices of bread right here. This is about what I would expect for banana bread, not sandwich bread. And given that the price on this bread is about $10 a bag, this is going to have to be pretty spectacular. So first, texture. Yeah, very gluteny. This tears like real wheat bread. That's pretty good. I need to get a bite without all the crust though. It's a bit drier than normal wheat bread. The chew on it is very good. There's no sort of gritty or powdery or strange sort of mouthfeel that sometimes you can get from these keto breads. I wish it were a little bit yeastier though, but on the whole, this is a decent tasting bread. For my continuous glucose monitoring, I'm using the Freestyle Libre and the Levels software, and I'll link to information about that down in the description below. But to kick things off, I take a picture of it with the software. Okay, toasted with butter. It seemed to toast pretty nicely. Now, toasting is one place where I see a lot of these breads kind of fail. That's when that powderiness and strange texture really starts to come to the forefront. I'm not getting that with this. Yeah, toasted with butter, this could be mistaken for regular bread pretty easily. Now, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to be back in 2 hours, and I can look at my entire glucose performance over that period. We'll see what happens. All right, it's been a little over 2 hours, so I'm now going to check my continuous glucose monitor with the software here. I used to install them on the back of my arm, but I was always bumping into doors and stuff. I'm kind of clumsy, and that was screwing up the sensors, so now I got it right here. All right, and then we'll import that into Levels. And I'm not surprised at the result because I also took blood glucose readings with my Keto Mojo. Here's where I started, at a 92. At 1 hour, which is typically when I peak, it was at a 90. And after 2 hours, I was back down to an 82. And looking at the Level software, you can see that this bread rated a 10 out of 10. That is a very, very stable response. You can see that I peaked at 90, which is not much of a peak. There was only a 4-point glucose change from eating 2 slices of this bread. That's nothing. So my summary on the golden wheat bread: tastes really good, texture's good, toasts up nicely, and most importantly, zero or essentially zero movement in blood glucose. My issues: size, those are some small slices, and price. I'll be back tomorrow to try out another bread. Next up, we have the dark wheat bread. Looking at the nutrition facts, pretty similar to the golden wheat. Total fat, 4 grams. Total carbs, 5 grams, all of which are dietary fiber for a net 0 grams. And 6 grams of protein. In terms of ingredients, again, looking pretty similar. Water, vital wheat gluten, eggs, oat fiber, palm oil, golden flaxseed meal, caramel color, or caramel color. That's one of the differences. Kosher salt, baker's yeast, butter, xanthan gum, cultured wheat, natural flavor, and honey. Now the bread itself is quite a bit darker than the golden wheat. We'll see if there's any difference in taste or texture. Again, the tear, very gluten-y, like regular bread. I think this seems maybe a little bit more stretchy than the golden wheat. The texture on this seems just slightly spongier than the golden wheat. I'm going to eat a crusty bit here. I'm not entirely sure about this flavor. It kind of feels like it's suffering from a little bit of an identity crisis. It doesn't really taste dark enough to me to feel like a dark wheat. In fact, the color on it almost reminds me of a rye bread. Not quite as dark as a pumpernickel, but it's not bringing that really deep, dark wheat flavor. I think I kind of prefer the golden wheat over this. Next, I'm going to have a piece of this bread toasted with butter. And like before, I'm going to kick off the Levels software to analyze this. And we'll give it a taste. The texture definitely improves once toasted. That sort of slightly sponginess that I got before, not at all apparent here. Also, now that this has been buttered, this is pretty delicious. If the cinnamon raisin bread has this sort of flavor plus cinnamons and raisin, I think that's going to be a winner. But yeah, this totally went up in my book once I toasted it and buttered it. But I'm going to finish eating this right now, and then I'll be back in 2 hours to see what the data says. Did this have any impact on my blood glucose? All right, let's take a look at my glucose response. I forgot to take a blood glucose reading with my Keto Mojo at the 1 hour mark. That's, like I say, is usually when I peak. Just forgot. But don't worry about it because I have found that my Keto Mojo and the Libre sensor, very consistent. Let's take a look at how this bread scored. Nice. A 10. So once again, the best score that you can get. And my glucose changed even less with the dark wheat bread. Only 2 points of total movement over the course of that 2 hour period. That is pretty impressive. So we're 2 for 2 on the Kiss My Keto bread in terms of glucose response. I'll be back tomorrow to try out the seeded wheat bread. For day 3, I'll be trying out the seeded wheat bread. Nutritional info, same as the other breads. Ingredients, water, vital wheat gluten, eggs, oat fiber, golden flaxseed meal, palm oil, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, baker's yeast, kosher salt, butter, xanthan gum, cultured wheat, natural flavor, and honey. And you can actually see some of those seeds and stuff in the bread. Looks pretty good. This tore, just a little bit easier than the other breads, not quite as gluten-y on the tear. This is some good bread. I mean, just straight up, plain, nothing on it. This is tasty. Now I've got my toasted bread. As with the others, I will kick this off with the Levels software by taking a picture. And we'll give this a taste. I am really impressed with the flavor and texture of this bread. I think if you told me that this was just a regular non-keto slice of bread, albeit kind of a small slice of bread, I wouldn't know the difference. It's that good. So I'm going to finish these 2 slices of bread, and then I'll be back in 2 hours to see what my glucose response was. It's been a little over 2 hours, so let's check out the glucose response. We have a 9. So I'm not sure why it's 1 point lower than the other breads. Let's check out Analyze. Only a 2-point glucose movement over the course of 2 hours. Now, I do see that it kind of tails up a little bit there at the end. Not sure what might have caused that. Probably not the bread, just because generally those spikes occur somewhere in the middle, right around 1 hour. But on the whole, blood glucose peaked at 87, so still pretty low. Only 2 points movement. We're 3 for 3. In the next segment, I will try out the cinnamon raisin bread. Okay, it's time for our fourth and final bread from Kiss My Keto, the cinnamon raisin bread. Now in terms of macros, you'll notice this has 6 total carbohydrates, 4 grams of fiber for a net 2 grams. Ingredients, we have water, vital wheat gluten, eggs, oat fiber, palm oil, golden flaxseed meal, golden raisins, kosher salt, baker's yeast, butter, xanthan gum, ground cinnamon, cultured wheat, natural flavor, stevia leaf extract, and honey. Now this loaf seems a little bit drier than the others. All 4 were frozen, but this one seems to have thawed slightly drier. I'm going to need to take a bite from the center here. It's good, but the taste is kind of dry as well. Let's see how this turns out toasted. Okay, I will snap a picture with the level software to kick this off, and then time to taste. This is actually the one bread out of the 4 that I don't think got better once I toasted it. In fact, I'm kind of hard-pressed to tell that this is a cinnamon raisin toast. It's not real strong on cinnamon. It's not especially sweet from the raisin. I'm kind of underwhelmed, to be honest. But I'll be back in 2 hours to see what the impact was on my blood glucose. Okay, let's take a look at the glucose response on the cinnamon raisin bread. The score, as you can see right here, is a 7 or a gentle rise. Go to Analyze, and you'll see that I peaked at 117. And that peak actually occurred a little bit earlier than it normally does for me. Usually it's right around the hour mark, but here it was about, 45 minutes. So at 45 minutes, I hit my peak. At about an hour, I was back down to 105, which, as you can see, corresponds to when I took a blood glucose reading with my Ketone Mojo. So cool to see that they're in sync. It seems that the general consensus on what is a glucose spike or not is whether or not it goes over 30 points. This only went 24. Now, for comparison's sake, I'm going to show you a little something that you can do in the analysis on the levels software. I am going to compare the Kiss My Keto bread with Carbonate, which is a bread that I reviewed some months ago. I'll link to that up here. So we hit the compare button, and we can look at these one of 2 ways. First, I'm going to do absolute, and the green bar, that is the Kiss My Keto. Now interestingly, I suspect we're going to see about the same thing for relative and absolute, since they both started at the same blood glucose point, just over 90. But anyhow, green is the Kiss My Keto, white is the Carbonate. So you can see the Carbonate, a lot bigger reaction, and it was very sustained. Now the relative function, what that does is if you've got different starting points, for example, let's say on one of the breads I was at about an 83 for my starting glucose and the other I was at a 90, the relative function starts them both at 0 so that you can see specifically how they behave compared to one another. And again, you can see that white bar there, that's the Carbonate. The green is the Kiss My Keto. Kiss My Keto, much better. So my summary of the Kiss My Keto bread. First, let's talk positives. 3 out of the 4 flavors I liked to varying degrees, from like to really like. The cinnamon raisin, that was just okay. The other thing I like is my blood glucose response. Coincidentally, all 3 of the ones that I really liked, virtually no glucose response. The cinnamon raisin, however, a bit more. These are some good breads. The issues I have with them are twofold though, and I talked about this after I reviewed that first bread. 1, those are some small slices. And 2, this is not a cheap bread. So I guess you need to now weigh, is it worth having the best keto bread that Steve has had for that price? That's your call. I don't know. Like I said, that's your call. But hopefully I've provided you with enough information that you can make your decision, and hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, please click that like button. If you're not a subscriber already, tap the subscribe button, then hit the bell to turn on all notifications. I'll have more of these reviews coming soon, so stay tuned. And thanks for watching.